right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call this meeting to order. We are waiting on Miss Hannah Smith Mason, who's on the way. That's why we tried to buy a little bit of time, but we're going to go ahead and get started anyway. Superintendent, would you call the roll? And I know you have some introductory items.
Mr. Lejeune?
Here.
Mr. Hidalgo?
Works present.
And we'll wait on Miss Hannah Mason when she gets here, and we'll just acknowledge when she does. First of all, let me start off with an introduction. First of all, thanks to our retirees for being here. We have some employees that are part of our system that are here also. You know, this year is going to be a very big year, and the one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to be very transparent with you and just say that I don't know everything about making these decisions as far as insurance, but I'm learning quickly and I'm learning fast. And I'll just tell you that the one thing that I feel like is my strength is that I rely on people around me to help me make some of these decisions that have an expertise in that. And I'm going to talk to you guys about, number one, it's not that I don't feel that our team at central office is where, they're lacking in any which way, but it is more or less for me to be able to say to you as retirees, to you people, to our active employees, that I am doing everything I can to seek as many opinions as possible, because when it's all said and done, we're going to have to make some decisions moving forward that I will have to bring to our insurance committee, along which eventually go to our board. So there is a person that I'm going to introduce right now that I will tell you that I sought out, and I basically have asked for this person to come and advise me and to be a part of some of these discussions. We're going to be making some decisions on this consultant that we are putting out there. We're going to be making some decisions as far as moving things forward. It's a person that I have a relationship with for probably over 20 years. And it's a person that I feel like is going to steer us in the right direction, give us some good insight. He is a person that has worked with the Vermilion Parish School Board. He has worked with the Louisiana Clerk of Courts. He works with the Vermilion Parish Police Bureau. He works with the City of Abbeville Insurance. He's somebody that has a wealth of knowledge that will, again, give me insight and be able to say, hey, Francis, maybe you guys need to kind of look here and look there as far as, and that is Mr. Lloyd Campisi. Mr. Lloyd is here to my right. I just asked for him to come up and kind of just say a few words, and then we'll get started from here. Mr. Lloyd?
If you don't mind, sir, please speak into the mic, because the meeting is a live streamed meeting. If you don't mind, if you'll speak into the mic, we'd appreciate it.
Okay, ready to go?
You're ready to go.
Thank you, thank you. Well, thank you, Superintendent. My name is Lloyd Campisi, for those of you who don't know me. And yes, I've been in the insurance business since 1977. And so I'm full of scars and battle-worn, but I'm like Francis. I'm just come from a very poor family in Abbeville who grew up on the west side, and were taught the basic values by my parents and the wonderful teachers that I had. To work hard, be transparent, be kind, and to treat everyone fairly. I'm honored that the superintendent has this much confidence in me to come before you and assist you in making some very important decisions as you go forward. Would I be a young man in my 40s or 50s or even 60s, I would love to have this job as your consultant. But at this stage in my life, I'm here to give you advice on a short-term basis and try to help you move forward. And I know how important it is for the retirees and for the employees. I want to also thank Ms. LaBeouf, who has provided me with more information than I could possibly consume in 2 weeks. I certainly understand for the new board members, if you're given the same packet of information that I have, how difficult it is to understand what's going on, where you've been, where you are, and where you need to be going forward. You have some awful responsibilities, and I hope to be able to contribute to you making good decisions. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Mr. Gargo, that's finished. I'm finished.
All right, just want to acknowledge Miss Hannah Smith Mason. Miss Hannah Smith Mason is here with us. Just for those who are listening in. All right. Item 2.1, value teachers. Mr. Lejeune, did you want to make an introduction, or did you want to just jump right into it? And before we get started, housekeeping. Anyone who is going to speak before us today, whether it's public comment or a presentation, please speak clearly and loudly into the microphone. We have folks who are watching online, and they can only hear you if you speak into a microphone. It is very important that everyone hear everything that is being said. Also, sometimes there may be folks in the room that have a harder hearing, harder to hear than myself. Please speak clearly into the microphone. Thank you. Mr. Lejeune?
Yes, sir. I'd like to introduce Ms. Suzanne Thibodeau. If she can come up and introduce the people that she has with us. They're from Value Teachers. They came by to give us a short, brief presentation on what their company has to offer and what they can do for the parish and the teachers that work for Lafayette Parish. Ms. Thibodeau?
Good morning. Yes, my name is Suzanne Thibodeau, and I work for Value Teachers, and I retired in 2020 with 39 years of experience and retired as the Director of Human Resources for this district. After I retired, I needed purpose in my life, and when Drew called me, I knew it would be a great fit because in my position, I met with teachers often that needed to retire for certain reasons earlier than expected, and they had not prepared for the retirement. So I thought, what greater purpose than to go help teachers and make them aware of how important it is for them to plan for their retirement. Because when I was a young teacher sitting in Crowley in an auditorium, someone came by like me and said, you should start saving money. And so I did that through a 403B plan for 39 years. And so when I retired, I did have a cushion to my retirement. It's an epidemic in the country that teachers are retiring in poverty. So this is a help. Well, these people I have with me today, my team, is Chase Christopher, and he's the CEO of the company. Andy Wells worked here for many years in Lafayette Parish, and Drew Wells, his son. It's a family-owned company that caters to teachers. And the CEO, Chase, is going to give you a little background of the company. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Suzanne.
And I want to thank y'all for letting me come today. That's the first thing I should have said. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate your time and letting us come.
All right. Mr. Superintendent and Board, thank you for having us. Value Teachers is a unique company. I've been with Value Teachers personally for 22 years. Graduated with an education degree from Ole Miss. I know that's not right here, but I'm from education. However, I went a little different path, and I'm not sure how to change the slide here. Okay. Let's see. Go back. I got it. Thank you. So Value Teachers was founded by a former educator. Our president, former educator, Paula Smith, started Value Teachers primarily because in her career in education, she identified that most educators weren't getting the education. They weren't getting the information. A lot of times what was happening in the school systems was people were coming in using the school system as access to sell products, insurance, life insurance, different things, other than educating and focusing on 403Bs. She founded Value Teachers. I would say 65% of our associates are former educators, administrators, coaches. That's by design. That's how we operate. Education first, information, and we go from there. Of course, Suzanne right here, Andy Wales. But Value Teachers focuses on basic concepts, really, of the benefits of pre-tax savings. What's going to happen when you retire, right, from your state retirement? How are you going to fill the gap? What does it look like when that calculation's made? Obviously, this is different in every state. This is just a national average. However, These are fundamental things that we feel most educators need to understand. What are the ways in which you can save for retirement? You know, a lot of people know what a 401k is, they know what an IRA is, but how many of them can really explain it, even on a basic level? And so that is one of our core focuses. What's the benefit of pre-tax savings, right? And the 403B is a tremendous option that is available for our school system employees. Started in 1958, and yet today we only have, the national average is about 22 to 23% of our educators are taking advantage of the 403B program. We feel that's primarily because of the lack of education information and resources that our educators have. Again, that's our focus. We also 100% believe and put first being a business partner with the school systems, with the parishes in which we work. I think that's fundamental to everybody. I think that individuals who have the opportunity to work with the employees of a parish, of a school system, should be a part of that system. Our goal at Value Teachers is to have local representation, to have educators, preferably, that are in the school, in the community, part of the community. I'm proud, when there was flooding in 2016, I'm proud and honored that Value Teachers answered the call. You know, a lot of big companies just cut a check to make a donation or do something, and that's good. I know school systems need all the money they can get, but I'm proud that in 2016, our Value Teachers Associates came together and raised money out of their pockets to give back to the parish here. I'm proud that we have programs such as the Life Changer, and I've included all of this in the packet for further discussion. I'm proud of my team here, Andy and Suzanne, who give back to the schools, the principals, the teachers, the administration, transportation, everybody that's involved. I think that is so important. You know, today, now more than ever, our employees in the school systems are overwhelmed. They don't feel as pushed up as they should. They're not recognized like they should be, in my opinion. And so we try and be a part of that, a positive part of that. Currently, Value Teachers is not, we are not an approved 403B vendor in the parish. We do have clients here from previous years. We have about 301 clients that have right at about $2.6 million in their 403B accounts today. They do not contribute to these accounts today, okay, but they are in the 403B plan. Total in force policy is about 301. What's interesting here is in 2016, 2017, when Value Teachers, when the adjustment was made, we had about 445. Well, that was quite a while ago. It was about, what, 8 years ago? And yet we still have 301 of our clients who haven't lost a penny in their retirement account due to fees or market fluctuation. And we feel that that's important. You know, there are different types of plans and programs. The IRS says there are two ways in which you can save in a 403B, an annuity and or a mutual fund. There are different types of annuities. And Value Teachers is not here. We're not here to try and say we're a fit for everybody. But we do feel that we have a solution through the education and through the products that we represent to be a fit for some of the folks. I think that's proven with the clients that we still have here. The Value Teachers products, as I've included in here, I even have some statistics on our current rates and caps, but the product is one that allows the individuals to save, to learn how to be savers. As a former educator and as educators yourselves, you know that people learn through repetition. And so what we know is if less than 75% are actually saving in a retirement account, when they put money into an account and they see market fluctuation, a lot of times they stop saving or they think, gosh, this isn't working. And so Value Teachers, the accounts that we use that have zero fees, zero market risk, help us to build savers. Like I said, we're not trying to be a solution for everybody. We believe in choice for employees. I believe that the employees should have a safety choice. They should have a mutual fund option. I believe there could be a variable annuity option in our marketplace. I believe it's really about choice. And that's who we are. That's what we try and do. We try and our goal would be to make a statistical difference in the number of employees that are saving for retirement in the parish. That would be our goal. And we can do that. Value Teachers operates in 6,000 school systems across the country, from California to Baltimore to Miami. Again, our associates are captive to Value Teachers, meaning when Value Teachers is approved in a district, a school system, a parish, we only represent the approved products through the school system. Our representatives do not go in, sell life insurance, cancer, other things. We are focused 100% on education in the 403B space. Thank you so much for your time. That's a little bit about who we are. Be happy to address any questions or certainly go into further detail with any of this information should you all desire. Thank you.
Hey, how many parishes are y'all in Louisiana?
36.
36.
36 right now? Yes, sir.
Is there any in the surrounding area?
Calcasieu, right next door.
Calcasieu?
Yes.
I have a question. Maybe for our staff, maybe for Trish. Who are our approved vendors on the 403B plan list?
Empower Retirement is the current vendor that's allowable through payroll. It was also done through an RFP back in 2017. Our administrator is Cornerstone Financial Group, but Empower is the sole 403B provider to our employees.
Is it standard that we only have one vendor for different services?
So back in 2017, we had multiple different vendors, much like they described at the beginning of their presentation when they spoke of they would go out to the different schools, that they would allow members to choose their own provider. Back in 2017, there was additional guidelines passed through ERISA. That's a federal law. We're technically non-ERISA. With regard to that, it required the employer to have more due diligence and prudence to ensure that they vet what their employees are enrolling in with regard to financial, 403Bs, 401Ks, other institutions. Currently, Empower is the only one that we have. Like I mentioned before, technically we're non-ERISA because we're not required to comply with it. However, it provides better due diligence when there's one provider, or at least the school board is vetting what is going out to your employees to make sure that they are enrolling in the benefits that you present to them that the school board has reviewed and vetted prior to them enrolling, is the best way I can describe it. There's not a federal guideline that requires us to have just one. However, back in 2017, we suggested that we work through that process and there only be one. Does that help?
Yeah, no, thank you.
So Trish, when is the renewal? Or is there an annual renewal for this?
It's a evergreen contract that we have currently with Empower. It automatically renews unless we work through an RFP process. Again, the last time we did it, we worked through an RFP. We could certainly entertain the idea if the board wants to work through another process and present through an RFP, if perhaps you're wanting to look at it that way.
My only intent is to make sure that we're offering the best possible choices to our employees. So, I mean, this isn't something that we've even discussed in the past 5 years that I've been on the board. So, just curious.
I would say for due diligence, my recommendation would be to bring it to the board, have it vetted, reviewed. at least through an RFP process. That way you're aware of it, you're putting hands on it, you're in the know of what is being presented to your employees so that you feel confident in what they're enrolling in. And then it shows that the LPSS has looked at it, reviewed it, and they have a backing with regard to it.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Trish.
Yes, sir.
Like I was, of course, working it when it all went through. What was the reason? Why was Empower chosen at that point?
It was worked through exactly like any other RFP process. We scored it based on the RFP. It was made as a recommendation, I believe, through the Board Insurance Committee, if I'm saying that correctly. And then it was brought to the board for approval, like our standard RFP process works.
Okay.
If I may, in addition to that, the Department of Labor just passed regulations governing ERISA plans. And actually, on September 3rd, 23rd, coming up of this year, they're implementing rules and laws of disclosure, best interest, which means that, now this is governing ERISA plans, which do not include 403B, 457 plans. However, in speaking to disclosures, I think that's important. And I do want you to know that Value Teachers and National Life Group, whose products we represent exclusively, is prepared and will comply with those disclosures and best interest disclosures when we meet and work with clients.
Mr. Lejeune, I'd like to, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to maybe expound on the question that you asked, why was it started? I was on the board at the time, and I do remember hearing from many principals that at the time there might have been 8, 9 vendors in the school system. And so, of course, from the vendor's perspective, with all due respect to vendors, that they all said, well, it was in the best interest of all of our employees because it gave options to our employees. Unfortunately, that wasn't a reality because the principals were saying, no, we're not going to have 9 vendors coming in here in and out, many of which, to Mr. Christopher's point, were selling products not even within the scope of what they were supposed to be doing. And the teachers were like, we can't even go in and enjoy lunch. We walk in and every day we have vendors peddling products. So it was a huge problem. And so a lot of principals were not allowing most of the vendors in. So every teacher did not have that same choice that, was argued. Furthermore, as I stated, they were peddling products. Many were, I'm not saying all of them were, but many of them were. And so this was an effort not to just streamline and come up with a better option for our employees who were basically, to Mr. Christopher's point, not even participating in 403B because they didn't even want to hear about it. This was also to streamline product option. And the RFP was pretty extensive. I mean, I didn't go through every step of it, but I was certainly involved in it. From this side of the table. And it was pretty extensive RFP to try to choose an organization that had the most opportunity in the line of products and et cetera. So it made a lot more sense to go with, I'm not going to say one, but it made a lot more sense to go with much less of an option, if you will, because a lot of these companies can provide all of the products on the market. Maybe not all of, it might not be this black mouse, but it's going to be another one just like it. So hopefully that gives a little insight and why the conversation got started and how we got to this point. I do know that, to Mr. Christopher's point, when that change was made, almost immediately, and certainly now 7, 8 years later, the participation rate in our parish is much higher because now we're not having 10 vendors peddling products. It's a deliberate education exercise. So hopefully that helps clarify a little bit for you. All right, item 3.1, discussion and or action regarding the Hub International report. Ms. LaBeouf or Mrs. Gardner, whoever wants to start that conversation.
Good morning, members of the board. I'm going to introduce Janae Arcana with Hub International so that she can review the Hub report with you.
All right, good morning. My name is Janae Arcana. I am going to go through 2 quick items with you guys today. The first is a plan performance update, and then the second is some preliminary information on the Inflation Reduction Act and how it impacts Medicare Part D. So if you can get me to page 4, that would be great. All right, so plan performance update. The last time I was here, we looked at what this picture looked like, and what your plan spend was through the end of December. So now we're adding on the months of January through April of 2024. Across the top is your enrollment. That lighter blue color is the number of employees or retirees that are on the Blue Cross plan. That darker blue is the number of individuals on the Medicare supplement plan. The picture at the bottom is what your plan performance looks like graphically. I'll get to the detailed numbers later, but I know some people are visual learners, and this is a easier way to look at everything, in my opinion. So your total funding is across the back in green. So the contributions of the board and the contributions of the employees and retirees added together equate to your total funding. Total plan cost is what you spend, right? That's that roller coaster of being on a self-funded plan where you have expenses as well as, rebates that come back to you, reimbursements that come back to you. And so you can see in some months where you may not receive a reimbursement, you're spending, upwards of $6 million. And then you may get a big reimbursement back like you did in March of 24 that helps offset those costs. Those things together sort of keep your plan funded close enough to 100, right? You're still over budget, and I'll go over how far over budget you are in a couple of pages, but you can see, it sort of helps level things out, right? It's not all expense. There are some things that you get back. When you look over the 2-year period that we're looking at here, you can see that red trend line. It's not remaining flat, right? There is, inflation in the world today. There is an increase in cost in everything today. So that is trending upwards as we look across the page. Now, if you move on to page 5, you can see what your plan cost looks like without any reimbursements. All right, so you can see there are some months where you're spending upwards of $7 million on claims. And remember, you're funded at $4 million. When we look at what your claims spend looks like over the course of this 2-year period, you can see that trend line really has ticked upwards towards the right side of the page, where you went from spending right around that $5 million mark to in 2023, claims really went through the roof on a lot of different categories that has increased your overall plan spend. Do you have any questions about either of those two? Okay, great. So looking at your actual spend on page 6, so I'm looking at your fiscal year plan performance on an actual basis. This is what was actually spent. This is not a projection. This is where we are today. If you look all the way to the right of the page in that navy blue column is a 10-month period from July 2023 to April of 2024. Each subsequent year is in the columns to the left, and any percent change is annualized so that you don't have to, adjust for fluctuations in the different time periods. Enrollment is at the top. You can see, your average Medicare enrollment has gone up significantly. You get 36% more in that Medicare supplement plan in this period, but overall, your total average enrollment has remained pretty steady. Next chunk we're going to look at is your claims. So your medical claims for this 10-month period is at $33 million, which is a 14.6% increase over the prior period. The pharmacy claims for the active employees are at $13.1 million, which again is a 14.6% increase over the prior period. And then we look at your egg whip claims. Those are at $11.8 million, which is a 15.5% increase over prior. Altogether, your gross claims are at $58 million, which again is a 14.8% increase over the prior period. And you can see if we look over a little bit further in that gross claims section, 2022-2023 was actually almost a 12% increase over 21-22. So since 2022, you can really see that claims number has increased significantly over that course of time.
have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this the trend you see everywhere, or?
You're a little higher than trend. So
Okay.
national trend on medical claims is at 7%. So you're higher, and you have been higher since 2021.
I mean,
For-
we've doubled.
You've doubled, right? And I'll talk to you about why it's doubled and where your spend is in a couple pages. Pharmacy spend is at a 10% trend, so higher than trend for sure in that category. And you can see there are, from in that, gray to yellow period, the EGWP claims had increased 17.3%. And then, from yellow to blue, right, that time period, the other pharmacy claims increased 16.1%. So pharmacy claims for everyone are skyrocketing. That's not totally uncommon. You have had a big increase in chronic conditions of your employees, as well as your large claim spend has increased a lot over this period of time. You have more individuals spending over $100,000 in claims than you ever have before. In 2023, you had 46 individuals who spent more than $100,000 on medical claims alone. Okay. Is that helpful to a degree? Okay. From there, so that's your claims cost, right? That's utilization based. It's going to be, what conditions people have and the number of people you have on the plan. Your fixed costs are, your administrative expenses paid to your TPAs and things like that. Those are managed as tightly as they possibly can and remain relatively stable. You so far have spent $3.4 million. That's a 1.3% increase over the prior period, which is a really strong contract negotiation terms in that category. Unfortunately, it is the smallest section of your plan spend, so while it helps control the cost, it doesn't help everything shrink down so much. Your Medicare Advantage premium has increased, but it's increased in congruence with the enrollment, which is exactly what we would expect to see there. Your departmental admin expenses have increased just slightly over the course of time. Nothing super concerning there. And then your gross plan cost. So all of those expenses added together is what your gross plan cost is. And that gets us to $62.7 million so far this fiscal year, which is a 14.1% increase over last fiscal year. Okay. From there, we'll start subtracting. Okay. We'll get to some good news and we start subtracting. And we'll pull in your pharmacy rebates, your retiree drug subsidies, specific reimbursements, and then you had 2 years of COVID claims reimbursements. In this current fiscal year, you're not going to have any COVID claims reimbursements, all right? So far, you've received $12.2 million back in total reimbursements. We don't look at a percent change in this category because it's largely utilization-based. It's not something you typically track, and the time periods are really far off on a pharmacy rebate. The pharmacy rebates are paid 180 days after the close of a quarter. So we're seeing rebates today on claims that were paid, 6-9 months ago. So your gross plan cost less your total reimbursements gets us to a net total plan cost of $50.4 million, which is a 15.6% increase over your prior year net total plan cost. And then we look at that plan cost versus where the plan is funded at. So you guys keep a really even 70-30 split on contributions between the employees and the board. So that thus far, employees have contributed $12.6 million. The board has contributed $29.9 million, which gets us to total funding of $42.5 million. When I look at the 42.5 versus the net total plan cost of 50.4, that ends us with a deficit of 7.9 million this fiscal year, or a loss ratio of 119%. Your goal is to break even, right? Anything that you're not collecting from the employees via contributions, the board is having to find a way to pay for that $7.9 million elsewhere. And that number is reflected in your net employer cost, and that is at $37.8 million.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Superintendent, can I ask you, we've heard over and over and over and over that our goal is to break even. I disagree, but I either need to be corrected or I would like us to all be on the same page. Our goal is not to break even. We need to build a reserve. So either I'm wrong and I need to be corrected, or we need to collectively be speaking the same language. Can you clarify that?
Yeah, Mr. Hidalgo, I'll say that again. I agree with you that, number one, just based upon every year, we don't know where claims are going to be. You definitely need to have a fund to be able to overcompensate for a year that is not good. And just from my previous experiences in dealing with insurance in my other parts of my life, I can tell you there was always something of which you had a fund that you could rely on when those 2 to 3 claims are not where they need to be. So that is just a proactive approach that I think that we need to get back to, because regardless of where we land, year after year, things will happen, and we just need to make sure that we're not always going back to the employees and say, hey, we need you to do this, we need you to do that. We have to have something that is somewhat we call a cushion to be able to help us from year in and year out.
It certainly was not directed towards you. I just want us to all be on the same page. If I'm wrong, I want to get on y'all's page. If not, I want to change the terminology, because we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people listening to us, and we just want to be on the same page. Thank you.
Yes, understood completely. I agree. If you always break even, you have nothing at all for a rainy day. And you should have at least 3 months of claim spend in a reserve account. In the event that you have to close the plan tomorrow, there are claims that are being incurred today that aren't going to be paid out for a couple of months, right? And you need that financial runway in order to close the plan. Today, you don't have anything in a reserve account to do that. And that is as part of, being a fiduciary of the plan and a fiduciary of everybody's monies that contribute. That is a responsibility that you hold to have a reserve account. So I absolutely agree with you, Mr. Hidalgo. You can't just break even at 100 every year. You do need something, as a cushion, as Mr. Francis was saying, to help us through. You can see back in the 2021 time period and the 21-22 time period, you had a little bit left over at the end of that fiscal year. The end of 21-22 ended with $3.3 million. All of that was eaten up in the 22-23 fiscal year, where you ended at a loss.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe even for Trish. I mean, the trend doesn't look good. We're 2 million last year down, now almost 8 million down. Are we expecting it to get worse? And do you know why?
So, Ms. Mason, when I come up here, I'm also going to review the financial respect to what Ms. Janae is reviewing with you here. That will give you a better idea. The high claims are still coming through. Keep in mind, what you're seeing in front of you is the actual claims. I'm also going to present to you the actual plus projections throughout the remaining fiscal year. So that number that you see at the bottom, 7.9, will grow based on my presentation that I'll give to you next.
Okay. And just to be clear, when we're at this sort of deficit, it comes straight out of the general fund, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. If we move on to the next page, it is the exact same set of data, but looking at it with different time periods. So now we're looking at on a plan year basis, which starts in January for you guys. I wanted you to look at it in this way because your large claimant reporting is going to be looked at in this way. That's the contract terms you're on a January to December basis. And really the first quarter of a year is typically really telling in how the plan year may go, because at the beginning of the year, all of your deductibles start over. So typically a health plan performs better in the front portion of the year as all the individuals are still working to meet their deductible. With all that said, looking at your new navy blue column here, we're just looking at the first quarter of 2024, and you're running at 115% loss ratio or a $2.4 million loss. So it's not, as Trish is going to speak about the projection, it's still, you have a lot of large claimants on the plan. The plan is not performing versus the budget very well. Okay. All right. Looking at your high dollar claims on the next page, we have here the largest claims individuals. Yeah, next page, please. Thank you.
I have one question.
Yeah, go
before you
ahead.
to the
Do you want to go
next
back?
page. Yes.
Sure.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines up on the funding, actives, and retirees combined.
Mhm.
For future reports, could you list it out as actives and retirees, or is it only possible to?
We could do it separate.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so in 2023, I was stating earlier, you had 46 individuals that spent more than $100,000 in medical claims. That is 0.47% of your population, and they spent over 26% of medical claims. Okay, so not even a whole percent. 0.5% of individuals on your plan spent the lion's share of money in medical claims. Of those 46, I will say 13 of them are retirees. 21 of the 46 were cancers. When I look at your reporting in this way, it is a lot larger of a large claimant listing than we typically see. And it is higher than it was in 2022. Okay, you had a lot more claimants in that bucket. Okay. Those 46, like I was saying, they spent 26% of claims. It was over $10 million. On the page in front of you, January through December of 2023 is in light blue at the top. We're looking at anybody who spent more than 50% of your specific stop-loss deductible at $525,000. And there were 14 of those. So you can see there's 14 members on this page. The majority of them are cancers. You can see just how many of them exceeded the specific stop-loss deductible, and you receive reimbursement back on them. So far in 2024, for the first 2 months of the year, you already have 2 that have exceeded the specific 50% of the specific stop-loss deductible. Member number 1 is anticipated to go over, and you'll receive reimbursement on them once they exceed the $525,000 limit. In addition to the large claimants, you have had a large increase in chronic conditions in the last couple of years. You had a 34% increase in individuals with end-stage renal disease. Right, that chronic kidney disease turns to end-stage renal disease, intense dialysis. It's very expensive, not a great outcome for these individuals, and very expensive for the plan. So 35% increase there. Congestive heart failure has increased significantly as well. You can see on this page here, there are 2 with heart disease or heart attack listed as their major diagnosis group. You have an increase in diabetes, hypertension, just like everybody does, but those numbers are, well into the thousands of members that you have on the plan. Those with chronic conditions, a lot of times have multiple chronic conditions and not excellent health states. So we've got to do some things. I know you have a great wellness plan in place to sort of help combat some of that. Maybe look at some cancer programs since you have so many cancers on the plan, making sure people have the correct diagnosis and the correct site of care, the appropriate medications going to them, things of that nature to help kind of curb some of this expense. Do you have any questions about the financials? Okay, I have one more update that's not super thrilling or positive to you guys on page 9, and it's a market update. So Ochsner and Blue Cross had their network agreement expired at the beginning of March. Ochsner is the biggest health system in the state. Blue Cross is the biggest payer in the state. They both need each other to operate. And these network agreements expire all the time. And, each are trying to advocate for their individuals, right? Ochsner is going to want to be paid a better reimbursement. Blue Cross is saying, no, we've got to keep the best discount for our members. Okay, so in that time frame of negotiation, because they can't operate without each other, all Ochsner claims were put on hold. So no Ochsner claims were processed at Blue Cross for any customer from March to May. So the January through April claims that I just showed you were a little bit premature in the months of March and April because you didn't pay any Ochsner claims during that time frame. Claims have begun to be released. They're releasing them in batches. They did not send them all through at once to hit you with one very large check run in one singular week. Once the month of May ends, we'll be able to get a report from Blue Cross that shows exactly how much you're paid to that one facility alone. It didn't change any utilization on your plan, so all of those things were occurring. But from a paid claim financial perspective, we're going to see an increase in May for sure.
That slide right there is, to me, just as or much more important than any other slide you've shown here today. And so I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
We are self-insured. We utilize the Blue Cross network,
Yep.
but it's our plan. We're not on a Blue Cross insurance plan. We're on a Lafayette Parish school system plan. What is first of all, first question, what is a typical agreement that Blue Cross has with these healthcare providers? And secondly, what has HUB done in the past? I know that you were not here, but to your knowledge, what has HUB done in the past to negotiate on our behalf to where we're not just doing a rubber stamp, Blue Cross, you say that they need each other to operate. I have to respectfully disagree. There are many self-insured plans that don't utilize Blue Cross or any other health insurance. They have their third-party TPA who pays their claims, and they utilize themselves to negotiate. So why are we stuck in this contractual agreement? First of all, what does an agreement look like? You say that Ochsner and Blue Cross network agreement is something that Blue Cross and Ochsner come together and negotiate. Tell us what that looks like.
Yeah, great questions. So a network contract between a facility and a payer, Blue Cross, United, whoever it is, typically lasts for about 3 years. Those are all held confidential between the physician or the hospital practice and the network itself. You guys are a self-insured plan, but you utilize Blue Cross and you pay Blue Cross a network access fee to use their network. Okay? If you wanted to negotiate a direct agreement with somebody, or if Ochsner was truly going to be out of network for an indefinite period of time with Blue Cross, we would then step in and negotiate a contract with that facility on your behalf. And there are plans out there that have just direct contracts, right? Or no network contract at all. You can look into reference-based pricing where you're paying claims at a percentage of Medicare to facilities. Totally different concept, right? So because of the way that your plan is built and how you've accessed Blue Cross, you are sort of beholden to that network agreement between Blue Cross and Ochsner. We would never want them to be out of network on your plan. If we had any thought that these two would not come back together and have an agreement, we would have an agreement on paper for you guys right now saying that any claim that comes from Ochsner's tax ID numbers for this specific plan, for your plan and your members, you pay these claims at this discount percentage, right? Because you are a smaller membership than Blue Cross membership as a whole, fully insured customers combined, the contract that we could negotiate for you is not going to be as great, or may come with stipulations that say, great, but your employees can only use Ochsner. You can't go and see any other type of provider. There are different tactics like that that the health systems will use to control their cost and keep people coming to their place of business. Is that helpful?
It was very helpful, and I agree with it for the most part.
Sure.
But, you know, if you have a self-insured plan that has 100 employees, that's much different than 10,000 lives.
Yeah,
So when
absolutely.
you have two hospitals in a town where the largest employer in the parish has 10,000 lives-ish on their health insurance plan, I find it hard to believe that those hospitals would not listen and consider a negotiation. And my concern is exactly what you stated a minute ago, discounts. We're always negotiating discounts, and we're not negotiating cost. And so if I'm selling this every day of the week and I'm giving you a 50% discount, but I sell it for $1,000, that is not an equitable value. And
Right.
so my concern is we're always negotiating discounts and we're not negotiating costs. So I'm sorry to get worked up, but that slide right there is exactly what our problem is in this district for a decade.
So Janae, I have a question. So,
Go ahead.
And again, this is kind of something that the team brought to my attention also about not having these accurate numbers based upon this. When did y'all find out about this lack of us having these numbers to knowing that these claims were not coming in?
March.
March. There was no heads up whatsoever from Blue Cross to Ochsner and what that conversation looked like beforehand so that we can somewhat negotiate. I mean, my point is, here's what I think Mr. Hidalgo was saying. You're our consultant. You're supposed to be advocating on our behalf and doing what you can to make sure that, again, and this is where Trish and them have a problem. They're coming to me and they're showing me these numbers, but they're saying now, oh, something happened where there is not accurate numbers because they withheld these claims because of whatever dispute or whatever it is that's going on. I keep going back to is that we need to be more proactive, and Mr. Hidalgo said it. We're the biggest business. Why are we not using that term and saying, hey, we need a better deal for our team. We need to make sure that we're being aggressive. We can't just lay and just say, hey, you do what you need to do and we'll just take it.
Yeah, go
Can I say
ahead.
something? I do see what Jeremy and Mr. Touchette are saying, but I did want to remind everyone, Ochsner and Lourdes are not locally owned. They're parts of much bigger hospital systems. So even though I would love for us to be able to negotiate as being the biggest employer in Lafayette Parish, they're not locally owned. These are giant hospital systems. And so they're negotiating with Blue Cross Blue Shield as a whole. And if we come in with just, you know, like it's the whole United States they're working with. You know, I would love to have a conversation with local representatives, but in all reality, I don't know how we could fight it.
Yeah, I think it all lands somewhere between, right? So it's Blue Cross of Louisiana negotiating with Ochsner. The Department of Insurance is involved or was involved at that point in time. Hub with all of the employers that we represent were involved in saying, everybody together, Lafayette Parish included, our clients cannot afford this. They cannot function like this. You have got to work it out, and you need to come up with something that is fair and agreeable to all parties. Mr. Hidalgo's, comment on healthcare economics is exactly right. You're negotiating on a discount on a price that's going up. You would love reference-based pricing. That is the, funding mechanism that you, I think, would just internally agree with. Whether that's right or not for the parish as a whole is a whole separate, total deep dive and exploration process there. Certainly a way to save money because you're not paying off of a discount, right? You're paying off of your Medicare negotiated prices or on what Medicare negotiates. So would love to chat with you about that later on. But no, I agree and I understand this is definitely puts you guys in a difficult position as we look at, how claims are going to be paid moving forward. Okay, now on to the Inflation Reduction Act. This will be applicable to the Medicare population. If you'll go on to page 11, so About a week and a half ago, we had a presentation given to us and to Trish and the benefits team from CVS and the EGWIP. The Inflation Reduction Act included a lot of major changes to the Medicare Part D program that everyone is still trying to unpack all of the effects of this act and how it impacts everybody, from the patients to the payers to the manufacturers of the drugs. So there's three big chunks of this act in how it affects pricing reforms. If you just Google the act, right, so many more provisions are included in there, but we are looking specifically at drug prices. So Medicare negotiation is the first one. This provision allows Medicare to negotiate the price for a list of 10 drugs starting in 2026. These drugs are high-cost drugs with no generic or biosimilar equivalents. We have the first list of 2026 drugs in a couple of pages. For those drugs to be eligible for negotiation, they need to be in the top 50 list of drug spend for Medicare spend in its entirety. Like I said, they have no generic or biosimilar, and they have to have been on the market for a number of years, either 7 or 11, depending on the type of drug they are. Inflation rebates is the next chunk. Drug manufacturers will need to pay rebates to the government when the drug price exceeds the inflation rate. Okay, so that's another piece that should help keep drug prices down. And then the third part is the Part D redesign. The Part D benefit phases were reduced from 4 phases to 3. And starting in 2025, there's a $2,000 out-of-pocket spending cap for members. There's also a new manufacturer discount program to cover some of the cost of brand drugs, and an increase in plan liability for plan sponsors. So in a lot of ways, we're looking at reducing cost for the retiree, for the individual on Medicare, which is great. But on the other side, because you are a self-insured plan, you are picking up some of those costs, and we'll go through that. So on the next page is a graphic representation of the Part D benefit redesign. If you go on to the next page. So you can see 2024 on the left, 2025 on the right. You can just, quick look here. The beneficiary paying it is in navy, and that is shrinking, and the plan payment in that brighter blue is increasing in some categories. So the redesign of the Medicare Part D portion will likely have a large impact to costs for you and for the retirees in the future by way of contributions. But the good news with the Part D benefit redesign is that members will have lower out-of-pocket costs. And, through that, we believe higher medication adherence, right? If they can afford their medications, they'll continue to keep them and have better health outcomes. Now, on the opposite side of that, plan sponsors will be responsible for a lot more of the Part D cost, especially as we get to the catastrophic page, which you can see in the bottom of the chart. That portion, your portion, the plan's portion, I should say, moves from 20% to 60% of drug costs in the catastrophic phase, and that phase starts sooner at a $2,000 out-of-pocket than the current $8,000 out-of-pocket. Drug manufacturers will help pay a small portion of the brand costs, and the government's portion is significantly reduced in the catastrophic phase. So there are more plan costs coming from the Medicare population on the pharmacy side in the next year.
Okay. I'm having a hard time understanding this picture.
Yes,
Can you
it's a lot.
can you point visually?
So the easiest, from the plan's perspective, the best place to look is what's highlighted in yellow.
Okay.
Right? So right now, after $8,000 that a participant pays, you pay 20%, and the government pays 80%. In 2025, after $2,000, after what a participant pays, you pay 60%, and the remaining is split between the manufacturer and the government, depending on the type of drug it is.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, this is all still developing. a quick timeline is on the next page of what has, occurred and what is going to occur. So Part D plan changes are $0 cost share after the out-of-pocket in 2024. The out-of-pocket maximum reduction to $2,000 in 2025. There is also in 2025 some copay smoothing that will occur throughout the year. Health and Human Services is still trying to put their finger on exactly what that means and how that will affect both the payees, you guys, and the patients. And then in 2026, Medicare negotiated maximum fair prices for 10 Part D drugs will go into effect. And then in the future, for 2027, it'll be 15 more Part D drugs. In 2028, it'll be 15 more Part B, as in boy, and Part D drugs will be added. And then in 2029, it'll be 20 additional drugs added annually. So there is a scaled plan here to add more drugs to that list that Medicare is negotiating on besides the 10 that they're starting with in 26. So the 10 are actually on the next page. And you can see them here. The Department of Health and Human Services has published this list of drugs that will be negotiated for maximum fair price for 2026. So we are talking about, a year and a half into the future here. Again, these are brand drugs without generic or biosimilar equivalents. And we will not know the results of the negotiations until September of 2024. For these drugs, the price at the point of sale will likely decrease significantly, and rebates will also decrease, right? So that's another factor that plays into your self-funded plan. And the manufacturer discount program will likely be eliminated. The lower point of service prices for these drugs will likely lead to a slower progression to the out-of-pocket maximum and lower subsidies. So spending less, right, because it's less expensive, you get to your out-of-pocket max slower, right? These things can or could increase your claims cost over time. And then lastly, one more page on page 15, some 2025 key dates and dependencies. So final notice came out in April. It is taking all of these vendors a lot of time to sift through, understand, and figure out how to price programs, how to price EGWP plans, how to price the Medicare Advantage plans, because cost is going to shift to the payee. The one thing I do want to look down toward the bottom, the second one from the bottom, Medicare prescription payment plan. So in part of the IRA will allow individuals who are taking a medication to stand at the pharmacy and say, look, today I can only afford to pay you $10. Well, at the point of sale, something cost a total amount. That drug might cost $100. So the remaining $90 is going to come from the plan. And then, you're relying upon that individual to pay their full cost up until their full, copay or whatever it is, their cost share is met. Ensuring that somebody keeps up with those payments is a separate item that no one really knows how that's going to work in practice. But there will be some upfront costs that you don't have today on the pharmacy side. It is a little bit different than how a medical claim is paid because member responsibility is always member responsibility. The plan never pays for that. I know that was a lot of information on the IRA and a lot of vague information. We are all waited with bated breath, on what the final rulings will be from Health and Human Services and how all of this is going to be priced out. It's looking like the Medicare Advantage market is going to add a 25% increase to premium this first year to help figure out what the budget is going to be. I don't know if that's truly how much more it will cost, or if it will cost a whole lot less, a whole lot more, we're not certain. So when we do get updated quotes for that current Humana plan today and all the other carriers, I do anticipate them to be higher, certainly higher than what you pay today. And this is the end of my presentation. If you don't have any other questions for me, thank you for having me. Oh, there you go. All right.
So I would like to both apologize to you and thank you. I apologize that you have not been in the system that long. You were kind of thrown in to our mess. I want to thank you for dealing with it. You've been very professional and very helpful. And certainly none of the questions are directed toward you. They're directed toward the issues that we face. So thank you, and please accept my apology.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, I'm pretty sure you'll be hanging around in case any questions come up from other items. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, great. Item 3.2, discussion and or action regarding, well, first of all, let's, just for the purpose of formality, if we could get a motion to accept this report.
I'd like to make a motion to, let's see, to accept the report.
The motion is that the Board Insurance Committee accept the hub in a national report.
And I'll second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion or any questions from the public on this report?
I assume that the 15% and 5% were not included in that report since it only goes through April, correct? Is that going to be included in the subsequent report?
No, ma'am, not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I know Blue Cross has been negotiating with Ochsner's. The last couple of years, Lourdes seems to have been the hospital most used. Is Hub helping to negotiate with Lourdes?
At this point, no.
Is that a possibility? If Lourdes can give us discounts too?
Do you mind coming to the mic?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Just so everyone
It's just a
listening and
question.
watching can hear.
Yeah, sure. At this point, no. Their contract is not currently up for negotiation. If you would like a direct contract at any point in time with any specific facility, we are happy to begin those discussions with specific entities.
Thank you. Any committee member comments? Great, if we could take that vote.
Three for, none against.
Motion carries. Item 3.2, discussion and or action regarding the Fund 85 budget report. Mrs. LaBeouf?
Good morning, everyone. Ms. Gardner, can you pull up that one pager for me, please? Yes, ma'am. Okay. So good morning, everyone. So the last few times that we've been here, the board has asked for us to provide ongoing financials so that we can see where we are, where we're going, and what type of kudos or concerns that we have at the forefront. So I am providing, every single time I come to the Board Insurance Committee, we're going to provide a monthly report with regard to your financials. We are working in conjunction with the Fund 85 accountant. We will meet with them 2 weeks prior to any Board Insurance Committee meeting. That will allow us to review it with the accountant. It will duly allow us to review it with Hub so that everybody is on the same page and you're getting the same information. So simply because we're meeting once a month, it's going to be 2 weeks in prior to any committee meeting. So just trying to give you some information as to how we're working it through. I'm going to provide a same report every single time we come. Unless you ask for additional information, we can certainly add it to the one-pager. I wanted to hit some of the key accounts that you're seeing there. Obviously, our medical and our pharmacy claims are our most expensive expenses under Fund 85. I also wanted to provide some information with regard to your reimbursements, which Hub also spoke on earlier. So let me just try and walk you through the report. Essentially, few reminders, Hub reports was actual. So that's all the actual spends that have already come through the plan. When she was up here a few moments ago, she noted that the current deficit was $7.9 million. Ms. Gardner, if you'll just scroll down just a bit to the bottom, just for a visual. So keep in mind, we are going to present not only the actuals, but the projections for the remainder of any fiscal year. So our fiscal year will end on June 30th. Then we'll get the new fiscal year 24-25 beginning 7/1, and we'll present to you the same thing every single month when we come to the Board Insurance Committee. And if you'll just scroll back up, Ms. Gardner. So as you can see, let me just hit some of the footnotes. I'm going to hit footnote number 4, which, let me read it out loud, and it's also at the bottom, Ms. Gardner. So essentially, Ms. Arcana spoke on it a few moments ago. I want to hit that one first because it does deal with our medical claims. When we had our review with Hub, after a meeting with the Fund 85 accountant, we realized that there was concern with the Ochsner claims. The claims under medical had been reducing over the last few weeks. We thought we were finally starting to see some relief that we should have seen in February and March. It wasn't, we were looking at the billing every single week when they were coming through, and the claims under medical were not as high. So it was a brief pause and a relief. Now we are realizing after our meeting with Hub on the 14th of May, after we put together this report with the accountant, that not all of the claims were listed in those claims. So I wanted to put a huge disclaimer with regard to it. So keep in mind, you've got 2 months of Ochsner claims that have not hit our billing yet. So that,
Trish, let me ask you this question. Go
Okay.
back to, this all started March 1st.
so if,
When did you get notice that this was the case so that we wouldn't have had a false sense of where we were financially?
exactly, okay. So we met with the Hub accountant on May 8th. We reconciled everything to which the one-pager to which you see. We met with the Hub consultant on the 14th of May, and we realized that those 2 months of Ochsner claims were not in our projections. That was the first time we were notified of it. We spoke with Hub. I think it got lost within the transition from the previous consultant to this consultant is how I'm going to describe it. I did circle back to Blue Cross to ask why we were not aware. Blue Cross did notify Hub of this concern. I have asked Blue Cross to notify myself as well if we've got anything major that comes through. That way we can make sure that we're in the know as well. So I wanted to put a huge disclaimer because the information that you see there with regard to the deficit noted under footnote number 2 and again on footnote number 3 does not have those 2 months of claims and billing, which will be coming through. Yes,
I have a
ma'am.
question. So for 2 months, we did not know this was happening.
I was not aware. No, ma'am.
How often do you talk with anyone from Blue Cross Blue Shield? Like, can you explain that process within your department? I mean, are they speaking with people from?
Yes, typically what happens is our Hub consultant, our group health insurance consultant is primarily the go-to. We're working through new changes based on some of our concerns that we're having with Fund 85. We're asking for all of that reporting to come from both, not only the pharmacy consultants with regard to RX benefits, Silver Scripts, Express Scripts. We're asking for the reporting to come to us as well as the consultant. It typically routes through the consultant. We get that information. We have a fantastic Blue Cross representative. She was concerned that we were not aware of this because it was sent through Hub. So I've since asked for new revisions of procedures moving forward. That way we can make sure that we're in the know. We're trying new processes, especially based on this changeover that we've had from one consultant to the new in February. So we're working it through, but yes, ma'am, we do keep ready conversations, both with the consultant, with Blue Cross Blue Shield, with all of our representatives with regard to pharmacy, all of the vendors. We make sure that we're in the know. We recently had RX Benefits come to town as well. We've asked for those reports to come to us so that we too are in the know.
Okay. I don't know who I would ask, but to the superintendent or Jeremy, I mean, I just feel like not knowing this for 2 months is absolutely unacceptable.
So could you please come up and give us where the breakdown of communication might have happened between Blue Cross and Hub?
All right, so I started working with you guys a couple days into March. The information came to all of us mid-February or so. At that point in time, it would have been received by the prior consultant. I notified all of my current clients at that point in time. I didn't think to reiterate it to you guys when I started working with you. That is completely my mistake and my fault, and I will shoulder that burden there. So when claims got turned back on, I provided that update to Trish mid-May, right, last week or the week prior, and I did not know that she had no idea that this was going on. I'm really sorry about that miscommunication there.
So let me just pause for a moment and talk a few minutes more on this. When I did reach out to Blue Cross, I did ask if we could get any type of projections as to how much we have in Ochsner claims that are heading our way so that we could better prepare and provide financials that are more up to date to you. They do not have that information either. So we're keeping in close contact with not only Blue Cross, we're working with Hub to make sure that we provide the most accurate information. So based on the deficit that you see above, that is not inclusive of those 2 months. We have since readjusted our projections moving forward. We are actually going to meet with the accountant this week in preparation of your next board insurance committee meeting in June. And we're going to increase those medical claims projections just based on the fact that we were not aware of this. Inclusive of that, there's also stop loss claims that have been coming through that we've been notified on a regular basis. And they are increasing as well. We will keep that into consideration when projecting out for the remainder of the fiscal year. So my best current projection that I can provide to you this morning is 9.1 on the deficit balance of where we currently are. However, I do expect that to increase based on my communications with regard to stop loss and the fact that we did not have those Ochsner claims into consideration. So that's a big part of this financial that I'm presenting to you this morning, so I wanted to emphasize it and just talk it through and provide some detailed information for you. So Ms. Garner, if you'll scroll back up. So I mainly wanted to provide you some of the main accounts. Obviously, the medical and the pharmacy are your two concerns. All of the accounts, in my opinion, based on our reconciliations with the Fund 85 accountant, they are running how we are projecting them. The exception would be the medical claims because of the increase in the stop loss with those high claimants coming through, in addition to the Ochsner claims. Otherwise, each one of the accounts are ending where we are anticipating and projecting them to. So I'll just roll through some of the main primary accounts. The medical, I do expect that to increase next time we come for June 5th, based on our reconciliation with the accountant. With regard to the pharmacy claims, they are projecting out to the end of the fiscal year as we are currently projecting. I don't see any concern with that account. To include the administrative account and the stop loss, we have an increased contract with that stop loss premium that we pay on a monthly basis. It too is coming in at about $99,000 a month. We expect that to be the same for the following month. So I see no concerns with pretty much the remaining accounts listed under the expense section. I will make a note under your Medicare Advantage fixed cost, the $921,000. We did see a large increase in enrollment with regard to the Humana Medicare Advantage members. We've had several sessions in the spring, February, March, April, and we've had recently about 30 new individuals transition from the Blue Cross plan under Humana. So that fixed costs under the 921 may increase next time I come to you in June. So just trying to put you in the know with regard to that. The life insurance, again, is being consistent. I see no concerns with that account increasing. With regard to the revenues on the second portion, the pharmacy reimbursements have been, we are projecting them to be about $600,000 more than what we were expecting based on budget, so that's a positive. I'm hopeful that our projections will, when the final totals come in with regard to the reimbursements, that they'll actually be more than what we are projecting right there. Currently, the budget is set at $13.6 million with regard to reimbursements. As you can see, we're projecting $14.2 at this particular time. We had a comment a moment ago with regard to premium collections. That is actually payroll, pension, general fund, and sales tax. I forgot to note that on there. I'll make sure to update it the next time I see you. Essentially, those increases will not start coming through. For active members, it will hit their June payroll, so you'll see the increase in the premiums coming through in June. For retirees, it will come through in July, based on the board approval at the last budget meeting for the 5% for active members and 15% for retirees. So you're not going to see it on this budget report. You'll see it on the next one. If we have that payroll information, I don't believe that we will, but I'll certainly discuss it with you in July when I come then. Everything else with regard to the revenues is all projecting out as we see that it should be. I see no cause for concern with any of it. So essentially, when you land at the bottom, you're looking at a $9.1 million deficit to end the fiscal year on 6/30 of this year. I do suspect that that deficit will be larger next time I come to you. We spoke in previous meetings with regard to that 1.2 RX Benefits Pharmacy Management Fund. Ms. Garner, if you'll just scroll down just a bit. It's noted within footnote number 3. This is just a friendly reminder. So the superintendent has signed off on that contract. We are, it's a service renewal with regard to pricing. The contract is actually from October 1st of any given year to 9/30 of any given year. But we get a new pricing renewal in January of every single year. We are receiving those new pricing contingencies with regard to the service agreement. The superintendent has signed off on the contract. He has agreed to accept the $1.2 million. I want to just put a huge disclaimer out there again, reminder, that if for some reason we do not renew with RX Benefits beginning on 10/1 of this year all the way to 9/30 of 25, we will have to give either the full $1.2 million back or it will be prorated effective after 10/1 of this year, because that's when our contract actually renews on a given year. So if you keep that into consideration, you've actually got two numbers with regard to deficit that you're looking at. You're either currently looking at the 9.1 projection or a 7.9 with the acceptance of that 1.2 million pharmacy management fund.
I have a question. Is there any reason to not accept the RX benefits?
No, ma'am, there's not. We have accepted it. I did receive the superintendent's contract. RX Benefits now has it. We are moving forward with it. However, if for some reason we get a new consultant or perhaps Hub reviews our pharmacy and makes a suggestion to change to a different provider, and if it's not RX Benefits, then that 1.2 would have to go back to RX Benefits because it's contingent on the renewal.
So Ms. Mason, I'll just say the reason my thoughts were that we would take it, because I just didn't want to leave $1.2 million there. That one, regardless of what we do, we get that consultant, whoever it is, and you get them to go negotiate whatever they need to make sure that we don't have to pay this back. So I want to do whatever I can to just capture what we can to be able to, I mean, this 9.1 does not look good, but I guess it looks better. I mean, that 7.9 looks better. So what I'm saying is, let's do this. Let's see where we are, and then wherever we go, we have to get that consultant to go and negotiate and say, hey, we need to keep this, and we need to make sure that we're at least getting that rebate back.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Hub has
I'm
mentioned,
sorry.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
And just to add on a little bit to that, another scenario is a consultant may be able to renegotiate a better deal, much better than 1.2 million, in which case we might want to say, write the check, send it. So a lot of scenarios here in play.
Yes, exactly. I was going to note that Hub has mentioned it on previous occasions that we may want to look at consolidating all of our pharmacy needs into one provider, and if that's the case, depending on who we land with, we may have a better deal through consolidation. There's a lot of scenarios here that we'd have to deep dive and review and take a look at. But I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of the disclaimer. It is contingent on the contract renewal. But we have worked through the process. RX Benefits does have the contract. So Ms. Gardner, if you'll just scroll down just a bit, I just want to put a visual. So this is just a reminder. We started out this fiscal year with a 4.3 fund balance. Based on the projections that I've noted above, which could change by the next time I come back to the Board Insurance Committee, you're looking at a projected loss of 4.8 million, which leaves us with a zero fund balance. Hub has already noted that you need at least 2.5, 3 months worth of reserves in order to make sure that you're capturing those claims and billing that'll be coming through should you decide to shut anything down with regard to self-funding. So that's just a visual to remind you of the fund balance. Any questions with regard to this or anything you'd like to see different?
I have a question, Ms. LeBeau.
Yes, sir.
The consulting fee that we pay monthly, is that like the going rate for a company our size, or do we negotiate that?
We have not renegotiated it. It is an evergreen contract directly with Hub. There are different ways that consultants work through what's payable to them. Some work through commissions directly, some work on a fixed cost like what we're providing to them. It really depends on the consultant and what the Lafayette Parish School Board agrees to. If you'll notice,
In your opinion, would it be better for a fix, or would it be better for them to negotiate?
I see both sides of that, because let's give an example of a commission to where we're not paying the consultant anything. You want to have confidence in that consultant that they're recommending providers and carriers to you that are in your best interest and not just based on a commission that they may be receiving. So I see positives to both. Fixed costs, at least you know what you are going to pay them. You can negotiate it lower if they're not delivering what you believe that they should be delivering. It really depends. It's got a lot of scenarios attached to it that we can certainly explore. Perhaps there's a hybrid model where there's a fixed cost and a commission scenario. We can certainly take a look at that. It can be reviewed with any type of quote or RFP process. We're going to work through a quote with a group health insurance consultant, and that can certainly be a consideration. It needs to be.
What's the timeline on that, Trish?
I do have an update on that when I do my staff review. You want me to address it then? Okay.
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
So in light of the 9.1 deficit and then expecting it to be even higher, and also looking back at two professionals that we've hired to help us decide how we get ahead of this deficit, one including an auditor who said to come in and migrate our retirees to Medicare. And even though, our board did vote overwhelmingly to give our retirees the choice of what to do, is there a way, when you present the numbers, is there a way, and maybe this is a question for Matt Dugas, I don't know how much y'all coordinate in projecting your numbers, is there a way to show what the numbers would look like if more of our retirees were on Medicare?
I'll answer it this way. It took an extensive amount of work to provide a migration for you for a budget because there's a lot of moving pieces. We can certainly look at it. I don't want to tell you no, but it requires a lot of puzzle pieces in order to have that answer available to you, but I can certainly explore it for you.
I'm just curious if there's some sort of, fancy Excel sheet way of putting in, here's our claims, and we run the numbers.
Right.
And then, but if our retirees were here, this is what our claims would look like. I'm just curious, by the magic of Excel and all the computer programs, I'm curious if there's a way to show that.
It involves not only your financials, but in addition to your enrollment that you're getting from Blue Cross, and it's coming from multiple vendors, and it involves payroll and pension, and it's got multiple puzzle pieces. So it can be done, but it did. We built out about 8 different budgets for the board when we brought it for the fiscal year of 24-25, just to give you some scenarios as to what's available to you. But we can certainly explore it to see what type of options I can offer you. That's not a problem.
Okay, thank you. The way I was envisioning it is when you've put up, these reports, just another column that says if, and gives us maybe a
Yes,
better
ma'am.
number. I don't know. Thank you.
It also involves a lot of determination as to who has Medicare. That was a huge consideration. Some of our members have A and B, some have B, don't have A. Some of the spouses don't have it. So it's a lot of moving parts with regard to enrollment there too, and making sure that those members are eligible based on a migration.
Do we have a census anywhere that, we're just checking boxes? So we have this retiree who, is Medicare eligible, and the spouse is not. So we're just checking boxes. Do we have that type of census somewhere?
So we do. So keep in mind, if we were going to do a full migration like we spoke of before, if the spouse was Medicare, I'll give you an example. If the spouse was Medicare eligible, the retiree was not, then we were going to have to split those members. The eligible member would move through the migration and onto the MedAdvantage plan. It also required a whole back office billing scenario too, because we'd have to come up with financials with regard to paying a premium and everything. But yes, we do have censuses. We can pull information from Blue Cross. I know which dependent or retiree or member has Medicare, and we can certainly determine that information.
I don't know if this is the right time, but I'm going to take this time to ask this question.
Okay.
What have we done? What have we put in place? What measures are we instituting to ensure that we are not paying claims for, as an example, a retiree who is Medicare eligible, who is not utilizing Medicare and just filing the claim through our insurance?
So technically, that's allowable. We have a secondary plan to which, if the member's Medicare eligible, Medicare pays primary, Blue Cross pays secondary. If the physician or whomever that they go and see do not accept Medicare, then Blue Cross picks up, the member works towards their deductible. All of that is allowable.
It's allowable by
Yeah.
who?
Through our plan. It's not a restriction that we can put on our plan. I have circled back, Janae, I see Janae's head. I have circled back to Blue Cross. We have asked this detailed question.
So Blue Cross is not,
It's a federal law.
Is it based on CMS? Am I saying that correct?
Can you repeat what she said? That it's a federal law?
So essentially CMS, which is Medicare, it's a federal law to where we cannot not allow that, correct? Yes. I've circled back then to Blue Cross to double check to make sure that that was accurate.
What I think Jeremy is truly asking is if they take both Medicare and Blue Cross and they just rather would not deal with Medicare and they just file it with Blue Cross.
No, ma'am. No, that's not what's happening. If the
Are you-
physician,
Are we sure of that?
they have to, if the member has Medicare, it's registered in our system. Their A and B is listed, their Blue Cross information is listed. When the member, whether the member presents it or they don't, let's just use a physician's office. Whether they present it or they don't, it's still in their record to where it does process claims correctly. It's based on their eligibility under active or retired status too. So that plays a key point. If the member is active, then those scenarios flop. Blue Cross pays first,
course.
is what happens. Yes.
Of course. Okay.
So we do have precautions in place. We do have that information loaded into Blue Cross. We are managing it through that system, and no, we can't put any type of criteria on it that doesn't allow the member to use our Blue Cross should the facility or the physician not accept Medicare.
So what you're saying is it's impossible to fraudulent, however you say it, through fraud, use just the Blue Cross instead of the...
I will give kudos. The billing offices typically are on par. They are looking at that information. They are ensuring coordination of benefits is accurate when they run those billings through. And Medicare, trust me, if they're not being run through correctly, we do get CMS reports that Medicare is checking that information too. It comes to us and it says, nope, this should have run this way versus the way that it processed through, and there's a cause for concern that we need further research on. So there are checks and balances in place, yes.
What certainly changes my perspective on my original opinion on a higher premium increase on retirees is just the sad reality. Can you shed a little bit of light on what happens when forget about the school system, let's just go out into the market. We have a retiree who is Medicare eligible and they're on Medicare, worked for, I don't care, name another company, and all they have is Medicare. And they go to a healthcare provider and they don't accept Medicare. What happens?
So at that point, they become a cash pay individual, just like anybody else. They need to use Medicare if that is their primary coverage. It is, I will say it's very generous that you guys even cover Medicare eligible retirees. If you work anywhere else and you hit age 65 and become eligible for Medicare, even as a retiree, typically at that point, the health plan is no longer covering you.
And this is one reason why.
Correct.
Because who can afford this type of stuff? And, so thank you, federal government. We appreciate it. But at the end of the day, this is one reason why. This is, again, we're not speaking about emotion. We're not speaking about what somebody might have been promised. We're speaking about reality. Reality. And so this is one reason why, in most places, it's not even an option. I do not want it to not be an option. I hope we never go there. I do not want it to not be an option. But we have two choices: increase revenue, decrease cost. That's it. So we got to figure out which one it's going to be.
Haven't we put into place where when you turn 65 and become Medicare eligible, you have to join? Haven't we put that in place?
So I do have a staff report on that, but the board did approve mandatory Medicare A and B as of May 8th.
Yes, ma'am.
When you approved the budget. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
I thought so.
I will.
Mr. Lejeune, none of that matters. None of it matters. You go to your doctor, he doesn't accept Medicare, it doesn't matter. We're still paying for it.
I just want to
That
make
is
the
correct.
point, if there was a federally funded way to build all of our new school buildings and get all of our supplies, I would definitely take it.
It re-emphasizes the fact of why the board, it is a recommendation that the board take a look at your fixed cost options, which would be your Medicare Advantage plan, because that IRA Act that Ms. Arcana spoke of earlier and the impact that it will have from Medicare beginning 2025, it's still going to impact the Medicare Advantage plans as well, but it's a fixed cost. Whereas it will impact us in the sense of medical prescription claims, but it's not going to be fixed. So keep that into consideration. So that's everything that I have with regard to this one pager, I can certainly add some, we'll take a look at what you asked for, Ms. Mason. We'll see if we can provide any of that for you next go-round. But every single time I come, at least you'll get a visual representation of where we are so that you can see where we are and where we're going.
Thank you. If we can get a motion on this item, the recommended action is that the Board Insurance Committee accept.
I'd like to make a motion that the Board Insurance Committee accept the department report presented by staff.
Okay, and I'll second it.
All right, motion and a second. Do we have any public comment? And we'll certainly allow questions, full transparency.
Good morning. I just want to know, I would like some clarity on how many people are filing Blue Cross and not going through Medicare. So that'll give us some idea of what kind of money the school board is paying for these claims that's not going through Medicare.
Is there any clarity on that now, or is that a future report? I mean, my argument is a dollar is a dollar too much, but do we have a estimate?
Right, I know comments are not usually Q&A, but in this, we need to know.
We did take a look at it during the budget process. We did pull claims and billing information. I do have that on my spreadsheet. I'm trying to remember. It was multi-million. I want to say 2.6. Am I remembering that correctly? I can certainly pull up that information for accuracy. But when we pulled that information for the budget board reports, it was alarming that members under Medicare were running Blue Cross Primary when they did have Medicare, yet they were receiving a discounted premium, which was part of the reason when we originally, when the first agenda item came out and the premium increases were increased to the full rate, and then there was a revision. That was part of the thought process with regard to it because members were running Blue Cross Primary despite having Medicare.
Would you kindly, at your convenience, just send me I don't need a 3-pager because I know you're busy, but just send me that in writing. There were several retirees at the last board meeting who clearly disagreed with that statement that I made, and I would like to email them, the ones that I recognized, I'd like to email them that information.
That's not a problem.
So while she looks, if there are any other comments, and I will allow questions unless my fellow committee members both disagree with that. While she's looking, it appears to be around 2-point-something million.
Yeah, I can't remember what you called the file. My apologies.
Do we have any other comments or questions while we're waiting on that information?
No, and it looks like IT is, I've got a reboot on my computer right here. I apologize. It's doing something. I'm not quite sure. I can't access that file right this moment.
I see it blinking.
I'm sorry. If I'm remembering correctly, I'm trying to remember, Mr. Hidalgo, did I send it to your attention as well? It would have been during the budget process. It would have been members under Medicare. And I believe, if I'm saying this correct, it was a 2.6. I'm going to try rebooting my computer, see if I can find it real quick.
Members, are y'all okay waiting for that information? Mr. Lejeune? You okay waiting for that? Okay.
Okay, I have it right here. I think I sent it through. Okay, so we ran claims from January through December of 2023. Retirees running Medicare A and B was 2.1 million, running Blue Cross Primary when they had Medicare A and B. I can certainly provide that in an email, that way you'll have it.
Please.
Okay.
Okay. Committee members, any further comments or questions? Mr. Lejeune? Mr. Francis? All right, we'll go to vote.
Three for, none against.
Motion carries. Item 3.3, discussion and interaction regarding the Insurance and Benefits Department staff report. Ms. LaBeouf.
Okay, I just wanted to briefly give you some key topics that are happening within the department, give you an update on each, that way you're aware of what's going on. So the first topic is the special open enrollment period. If you remember correctly, we are offering that to retirees only based on the 15% increase effective July 1st, based on the board's approval at the budget board meeting in May. Essentially, what a special open enrollment period is it allows them to make changes to their group health insurance plan. It's offered to retirees only from May 9th through May 31st. They can choose one of four options. They can either take no action at all. They just want to keep things the same. They don't need to do anything. The second one is to cancel their contract. I'll put a huge disclaimer there. If any member cancels their contract, they cannot return to our group health insurance plan. Or they could change to a lower plan. An example would be enhanced to basic, or perhaps the basic to the high deductible, or changing from enhanced to high deductible, keeping in mind that Medicare eligible members cannot make any other change other than having the basic plan. Essentially, we send out these communications to members. We have been receiving a few changes here and there, but I just wanted to remind everybody that they have until the 31st of May to make any type of changes that they would like, retirees in particular, until May 31st. Please contact our office. We'll be happy to help you.
Can you report on any movement that you've seen so far?
We have had a few members completely cancel their plan. We have, if I'm saying this correct, we haven't had too many transition from a higher plan to a lower plan, but we have had several cancellations. I'd say less than 15, actually. Roughly 5 to 10 cancellations from the plan. We want to make sure that when they do so, that they understand that they cannot return once it's a permanent decision once they do so. The other piece was something that you had mentioned, Mr. Lejeune, the mandatory Medicare A and B enrollment for eligible members. As of May 8th, when the board approved the budget, they approved this new mandate for Medicare eligible members. Keep in mind, the member has to be retired. So let me give you an example. If I'm actively working, I'm 66, and technically I'm eligible for Medicare because Medicare is age 65. It's not my requirement to enroll in Medicare A and B at that particular time, but it is my requirement to do so once I retire. That is also contingent on any spouse who may be currently working, an eligible spouse of a retiree. So keep in mind, mandatory, the district now has eligible members who are 65 on or after May 8th and are retired, are required to have their Medicare A and B moving forward, both the retiree and the spouse. This mandate also extends to current members. So let's say I have my A and B, and for some reason I stop paying my Part B premium. It's a requirement for you to continue your group health insurance with the district, and you must keep your Part B enrollment. Pay those premiums directly to CMS, which is Medicare. It's a mandatory requirement moving forward. If you have any questions, certainly reach out. We'll help direct you. I'd also like to put a disclaimer. We sent out retirees a lot of information. So if they have any questions, certainly connect with our office. We'll help explain their individual circumstance. But let's just say I am not eligible. Let's say I've worked from home my whole life, and I've not worked in a work setting and therefore not accrued enough hours in order to be eligible for Part A. However, maybe I've earned those hours through my current spouse or a previous spouse. If that's your scenario too, you're over age 65, the district is mandating that you too make your way to Medicare and enroll in both your A and B if you're eligible. So we just wanted to reiterate and remind members to connect with our office. It's difficult to understand that transition to Medicare, so we want to help you understand it, so please connect with us. With Alliance, this is a friendly reminder that we brought to the Board Insurance Committee about 2 months ago. We were changing EAP services. EAP is essentially our free counseling service offered to active members of the district. It also includes their dependents. So my spouse, my children are also eligible for free counseling services. We are transitioning as of July 1st from BHS to Alliance. We're going to be putting out a lot of communications to members. We're going to put it in several different communication sources. We're going to do email. We're going to do public school works, which they have to do their mandatory training through. Be on the lookout for our communications. That way you know that our free services that are available to you and your family members will be transitioning. We'll also make sure staff is aware of this because it will affect, let's just say they have an employee who needs additional counseling and they're making it a mandatory option. Alliance is also that option for staff too. We'll make sure to update everyone on that as well. So keep in mind, EAP services, they're offered in person, via telephone, or via video. There is unlimited free counseling with the Alliance, where previously with BHS, members only had 6 free counseling services available to them. So we're super excited about that transition, and we think it will be hugely beneficial to our members who need assistance. Keep in mind crisis support. That's that 24 hours, 7 days a week crisis support. You're having a really bad day, you need to connect. Definitely connect with the new EAP services. They're both offered through our current provider and our new provider, Alliance. They're also going to be providing coaching, discount programs, and legal and finance. So any members that have questions, please connect with our office. We'll be happy to explain those transitions and those new benefits that will be offered through the new provider of EAP. We did briefly speak on RX benefits when I went through the one-pager with regard to financials. This is just a reminder. Our new contract terms with regard to pricing started on January 1st of this year. The superintendent has signed off on the contract, and it is the $1.2 million pharmacy management fund is contingent on a 1-year contract renewal with RX benefits. So that's just another disclaimer. And then last but not least, with regard to the group health insurance quote, we brought it to the Board Insurance Committee. We are working through that process. We have built out the quote. Staff has built out the quote. We have sent it onto superintendent review and attorney review. We are still fine-tuning everything. We anticipate that it will go out for quote to select solicited companies and individuals on the 10th of June, unless that timeline changes. Based on that, those members or companies would fill out the quote information, present it back to LPSS for a Board Insurance Committee submission to where they'd have a presentation to the Board Insurance Committee on July 10th. And then based on a recommendation from the Board Insurance Committee, we would bring it to the board at their July 31st board meeting. So that's the anticipated timeline, as long as a wrench doesn't get thrown in it. We are working through the process. We are making sure everyone's aware of it, and we do have a list of individuals or companies who may be interested in providing a quote, and we will make sure to bring it your way in the next couple weeks. And that's all my reporting. Does anyone have any further questions?
fellow committee members, one of the reasons I wanted this to be an action item is to give the public an opportunity to speak. And again, if we can get a motion on this item to open it up to public comment, and keep in mind that unless you guys disagree, I'd also like to allow them to ask questions, as long as the questions stay relevant and pointed to the agenda item having to do with Insurance Benefits Department staff report.
I'd like to make a motion that the Board Insurance Committee accept the department report presented by staff.
And I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment or questions on this item?
I think Ms. LaBeouf mentioned that June will see the 5% and July the 15%. Do we have a total amount of revenue that will be generated from those two increases? And the second question is, as far as the consultant process, my understanding was that the board approved that those people who will be allowed to give a quote would come from this committee or from the staff. I want to make sure that's correct, too.
Yes, I believe that's what Ms. LaBeouf reported. Matt, do you have the numbers of the amount of revenue to the insurance fund? The 5 and the 15%. Do you have that total amount of revenue?
I believe
annualized?
Trish said she has those on hand.
Oh.
Do you, Trish? No.
I'd have to likely pull up that information, but I can certainly provide it for you. I think the screen stopped doing the wonky information.
All right, do we? Oh,
I don't know that I have it at the ready, but I can certainly pull up all the budget reports and provide that to you. I know we worked it through with the budget process. We presented it to executive staff. I just don't think I have it at the ready.
give you a second to check. If not, we can get it out. The increased amount, the amount that, the revenue increase. So if we brought in 56 million last year, well, that's not the number, but on premiums, if we brought in 30% of whatever, what's the difference in the premium increase?
That's what I'm trying to look for. No, ma'am.
Okay.
Are you looking for the total revenues? It would bring it up to 56 million for next year's fiscal year budget.
What was it last year?
Current budget for last year was at 51 million,
So
but
5 million-ish.
I can certainly deep dive into it, just do triple checks, make sure that information's accurate.
Yeah, when you get
for
a chance. This is, I think, will suffice for now.
Yeah, it looks like 4,872,000 on the adopted budget, the difference between the previous year's health premiums and the current year's budget.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions or comments, public questions or comments? Regarding this. Okay. Do we have any committee member comments or questions? I would like to make just one regarding this. Yesterday, and I provided each one of you a copy in your email box. Yesterday, I sent a memo out to all retirees, and my goal there was to stay connected. Communication is key. I think I've learned that most all my life, but in this particular situation, I've learned that. I was pleasantly surprised, not only by the number of responses, dozens and dozens in just one day, but the, I guess the positive-ish responses, recommendations. Hey, please consider this, consider this, consider this. So I would ask you, I know that you guys, well, you're retired, but I know that, we're all busy, but I would ask you to please maybe attempt to do the same in whatever way, shape, or form you see fit, because communication is going to be key here. There are so many things that we know, I've known, that a lot of folks they just don't know. They don't understand, and it's because of, I'm not going to call it the lack of communication. I think the district communicates quite a bit. I spoke to a couple of retirees yesterday who are personal friends of mine, and I said, well, did you get my email? Oh, I don't open those emails when I come from the district. So, I just think the harder we try, the better we'll be. So I'm just asking if it's possible. And Ms. LaBeouf, if you can continue to please educate. Also, I know it's a task because I know there's a couple of thousand, but not just retirees. If we could find a way to make sure that every member, every employee knows about these board insurance committee meetings, then we can't say that we didn't do our job to notify folks. I know so many retirees who responded back to me yesterday saying, I can't make the meeting tomorrow. I apologize, but I'll try to do my best to make it in the future. And so I just want to make sure that they know in plenty enough time when these meetings will be. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
Probably for Trish. When you contact the retirees, I know that you've been using email. How often do you use paper mail?
We do not use paper mail as much anymore because it's a massive effort. If I'm saying this correctly, staff can correct me if I'm wrong. A large majority of our retirees do have an email address. I would suggest this too. If you're not receiving district communications, that's a concern because we are sending them out regularly. Please make sure we have your updated information. I'll just make that disclaimer. There's probably about 400 members, if I'm saying that correct. 600 without email addresses that we have on record for those members. We do have, it is a massive effort in order to put all that together. I'll give you an example. That special open enrollment had about 15 different pages attached to it in order to send out that information. But we do primarily send it via email, yes.
I'm just curious. I know that these insurance committee meetings are planned out well in advance. I think we're planned out a year?
For the year.
Rest of this year. Would it be possible, maybe with the superintendent, would it be possible to send out a letter announcing, a paper letter announcing the dates of the insurance committee meetings so
Yes,
that
ma'am.
people...
I think Mr. Hidalgo had asked for something
Yeah.
similar. We can certainly put together a one-pager. We can redirect them to the website should a date change. I know we had a member come the other day on the wrong date. Just redirect them to the website so they can always double-check there before they head our way. But we can provide a one-pager with those dates. I think we're built out through the rest of this year, and I can provide that info.
Yeah.
Ms. LaBeouf, would you also please share that we use Blackboard communication with our retirees? Maybe they don't know that piece, correct? Don't we use it?
So the Blackboard communication is a service that we use, but it does come across as insurance no reply, if I'm noting that correct as well.
But it's a text message, correct?
Not necessarily. It depends on how we set it up. Examples, we wouldn't have sent out a call to the open enrollment because it's a massive amount of information. We provided it in print instead. So 9 times out of 10, we typically send an email and a call that allows them the information. We have posted on our main LPSS page a 2024 update information to where if the member cannot receive the information through email, they can always go to the website, pull up that info, and be able to see the the district communications from insurance. So we do provide a resource for them on our webpage.
How many cell phone numbers do we have versus, first of all, how many retirees you have on that spreadsheet? You said about 600 you don't have emails for.
About 3,300, 3,200.
3,200. So how many of them do you have cell phone numbers for? Versus
We
email?
should have a cell phone number on every member. That's the key word, should.
So
Yeah.
we can get, it'd be well worth, I guess this Blackboard does it, but some kind of messaging app.
Correct. We have sent out, just like to active members, examples like that where we've sent it through the text and a click here. I think the biggest concern with the retiree population is the click here sometimes.
Yeah.
So, but yes, we have multiple resources available to where we can communicate. If that member perhaps is not tech savvy, they do have somebody that can help assist them. Most likely they do.
So, Mr. Hidalgo, the system we use to call parents and students is not available for our retirees, so it's built into the budget that y'all approved for the Blackboard. The staff actually hand-entered all 3,000-something employees' emails and phone numbers and use that as the communication tool since it is not built into our management information system here for our actives and our parents.
But it does the same thing.
Yes, it is very comparable. Yes, sir.
So as far as the letter, we've talked about it, and I want to thank Ms. Mason for bringing it up. If it makes sense, I'd like to say we do it. Look, I know there was one time where we were asked to count paper clips. But I think this is important enough to make sure that everybody understands, and I'll ask you, I'm pretty sure that you already know this, but just in case, please put on there that things change. So these are our dates for the remainder of the year, but things may change, so if we can give them an avenue to go to view any change. We don't want to send a letter out every time there's a change. That's 3,000 letters that we,
That's a lot of letters. Yes, sir.
So thank you.
One more question. You're saying we have about 3,200 retirees?
Yes, ma'am.
How many members do we have on our plan total?
There's 2,300 Medicare eligible members. That's correct. There's about 5,300 total members. If you're just looking at subscribers, that would be like employees or retirees. That doesn't include the dependents. There's about 9,000 plus whole members. That means your whole family, plus the subscriber, the retiree, or the active member. 2,300 Medicare eligible members, and I'm not sure exactly how many retirees right off the top of my head. Ms. Mason?
Right.
It's close to in between 2,300 and 33. Yes, ma'am. I can get you an exact number. I can certainly
I
pull
was
that.
just curious for ballpark, considering, our total expenses at 77 million and just trying to divide
That's about
down.
9,100 lives, under 10,000.
Right.
But just calculating the average cost is what I was kind of wondering. Thank you.
All right, any other comments from the committee?
I'm glad you brought up the letter because I was going to get up and talk about the letter because I thought the letter was rather alarming and it was on official letterhead, school board letterhead, so I knew it was official. But there were several things of questioning, but one of the things that I would like clarified, and Mr. Hidalgo had told us he would be back in January. Well, he came back sooner than January on regarding the issue. But the question I have is, and you have used that, Mr. Hidalgo, that misinformation. And so please tell us what the misinformation is. We have a meeting in May, at the end of May, I think it's May 22nd, the panel has a meeting. So perhaps you can provide us that, and maybe we can clarify what this misinformation is.
You and I both know that if we get into this, it's just going to be a back and forth, and so I'm not going to do that. I'll be happy to speak to you personally about it, and then after we speak, if you would like me to then issue another memo out to the entire retiree population, I will be happy to do so. Thank you.
I'd be more than happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I did want to say, I think that Trish has done a great job in addressing some of the, so-called misinformation or misunderstandings. And I know that, you're continuing to do that through this whole process. So thank you.
All right. With that said, we'll go to vote.
Three for, none against.
Motion carries. With that being the last item on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned.